Well, Turkey's policy has evolved over time. It has been very, very closely linked to the personal views of the current president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who was prime minister when the war broke out in Syria and is now the president. And he has changed the internal mechanisms inside Turkey. He's consolidated power in his own hands, and really when we talk about Syria policy, we're talking about his policy and how that's changed. When the war began, he believed that regime change in Syria, even though Assad had been a friend of his, he believed that regime change in Syria would serve Turkey's interests, that if he backed rebel groups that he believed were more popular than the regime of Bashar al-Assad, if he backed them, then they would topple Assad and a friendly pro-Turkish government would emerge inside Syria, and that would help Turkey promote itself regionally as a regional power. However, he miscalculated. He didn't realize the Assad regime was stronger than he thought. He didn't realize that the rebels he was backing were weaker and more fragmented than he thought. And a lot of unintended consequences came out of the conflict, most notably the emergence of Kurdish militants and radical jihadists in the form of ISIS forming in the areas that the Assad regime had departed from. And those groups targeted Turkey almost as much as they targeted Syrian groups, and Turkey suddenly became victim of Kurdish nationalist militancy and also ISIS jihadist terrorism. And that prompted, most recently, a shift in Turkey's opinion. And Turkey has more recently recognized that the major threat comes from the Kurdish militants and from ISIS, and not from Assad. So whilst it hasn't officially changed its position, and still officially says that it's opposed to Assad, very few resources are now going into the anti-Assad fight, and they're primarily being directed in the fight against ISIS and the Kurds. And indeed, Turkey has recently made an agreement with Assad's close ally, Russia, to facilitate that fight against the Kurds and ISIS and allow a Turkish invasion of northern Syria to bring that about. But Turkey now finds itself in a much worse position than it was in 2011. Any ambitions it might have of regional leadership seem to be over, and instead it's having to face a domestic crisis facilitated by ISIS and Kurdish terrorism. So really, Turkey's policy on Syria has been a failure.